I'll try to be as short as possible, and I'm planning to, keep you busy for half an hour.
No, all good. Don't worry about this.
No. Well, I mean, I do have weight after, so I also need to have some time in between, but it's alright. So the training session, fighting in melee is the hardest part in any game mode because you are close to the enemy, all the skills are effective, generally there's a lot of damage going on. But, a little step back from that, let's cover a little bit of the basis of moving in Guild Wars first. By default, if you double tap your movement skill, you're gonna dodge. If you haven't done that already, I'd highly suggest you guys to remove that feature and use a dedicated keybind for dodging. So if you double tap, you're not gonna dodge. As you can see, my character is moving, but it's not dodging at all. If I want to dodge, in my case, I press a V and I dodge. The benefit for that is that if you've done any jumping puzzle at all, you do know what's the advantage of that. But generally you have much better control of your character, and more importantly, you're not gonna waste your dodges if you move left and right continuously. Second thing, for the movement keys, your A and D by default turns your camera left and right. You do not want to have that. I've mine keybind to strafe left and right so that you can see my character is moving left and right, but my camera, well, you cannot see that from your point of view, but on the recording you will be able to see that it's not moving at all. Those are the real basics of movements. Just get used to it. It will get better from there. Other things that are important for movement is the camera configuration. If you open up your options under general option, this camera, you have the vertical position near, far, zoom sensitivity, field of view. You want all of that as high as possible. Especially the field of view, it greatly impacts how much you can actually see of things that are going on, because most of the times if you die in combat, it's because you haven't seen the enemy. The vertical positions, both of them are at the maximum, allows you to see over walls, and generally keeps a 45-degree angles, which is let's say the optimal view angle for fighting. The closest the enemies are, the highest the angle, so more you're looking at the floor rather than at the horizon. But generally 45 degrees is like the optimal view angle for World vs. World. All these things helps in actually seeing what's going on. Most of the time that's the main issue. Now if you can come close to me or standing on the marker, let's see, I don't think in this class I have something, so maybe this one. But if any guardian can drop down a symbol on us, that would be, we have guardians. Well, that's the size of, that's the maximum distance that you should be from the tag. That's a distance from the it's a symbol. What that means is that all the melee effective bows are within that circle, which is like 300, and from the center is half a dodge, so it's not that much. Why is that important? But especially when you're fighting in against high damage opponents, so things that kills you in few hits, the closer you are, the likelihood of surviving increase. Which it's kind of due to how AoE skill works in Guild 2. So whenever you have some skill that you can place on the ground, green circles appear, and now I'm gonna place a random skill on the marker over there. You can see a circle appearing and some damage, some nice animation. That's all good and fine, but how the guild was actually calculate the damage is that it picks the center point and grabs the amount of targets specified in the skill, which in my case maybe 5, and then picks the 5 closest to the center point of the skill. If we stand all together, well, it's gonna pick 5 random people, and hopefully 5 random people every single time, and the damage is mitigated that way. Which is one huge thing about standing all together in the same point. Not only that, but all your skills, even vibrance, affect an AoE range around you, and all your support skills have that very small range. So you're gonna get healing, you're gonna get support, and generally you're gonna stay alive. Now, as I said before, if whenever you are in an organized squad and marker are used, quite often you hear commanders say, "Oh, where's a marker?" and everybody try to put the wires as close as possible to the marker, or the AoE skill as close as possible to the marker. Which means that if the marker is close to here, or here, and everybody drops the damage, the same 5 people are gonna take the damage, because all 5 people are gonna be the closest to the center point of the enemy skills. Which is why standing still in combat is usually a really bad idea. If you ever followed me, you can attest that I have never still. I'm never standing in one spot. Even when I say stand on one spot, I'm never standing still. And it's a habit that you need to get into, which is keep moving left and right. Now, not as far to get outside of that imaginary circle that you have around us, right? It's not, you don't move that much, you just move half a step left and right. But doing so, if everybody is doing that, there is high chance that those damage will never take the same 5 people, because we keep moving left and right, and so the closest to the enemy attack will never be the same 5 people, and therefore the damage is highly reduced. So the first thing that I'm gonna ask you guys to practice, doesn't matter which commander you're gonna follow, is whenever you are in melee range and you are in fighting something, keep moving left and right. Keep moving, never stand still. The commander says stand still, you don't stand still. You keep moving on the same spot. And it doesn't matter whether the commander then decides to move on the right hand side, because you're then ready to move. Right? And you keep moving left and right, you keep moving left and right, and you move down. And you keep repeating that. Doesn't matter which commander you follow. Well, the same principle affects the healing skills as well, by the way. So the support skills always take the 5 closest to you within your party, and then the non-party members. Okay. Yes. For certain skills. For others, not. Because it would be too easy. otherwise. In general, you could say that pets count as non-party members for most of the skills. It's not a member of your party, it's a member of your squad, but still it receives boons. So having pets might decrease the... I mean, they might receive some boons once in a while. And also, if you notice, your pet tends to die even if, your squad is completely fine. And that's because they don't receive as much as a player. It's particularly important when you're actually stealthing. So when you apply stealth, they do count as the closest allies to you, so they might receive stealth. But yeah, in general, it shouldn't matter. So keep moving left and right. That's the first thing that I'm gonna say to you. Now, in the topic of movement, usually we move forward. We tend to move forward, right? Even when we turn around, we keep moving forward. Now, there's times where the enemy is maybe there, and we say pull back. Now, the first thing that someone is gonna do is press the S key and start moving back, which, as you might notice, is quite slow. I mean, you can move backward, but it's super slow. Now, there are two ways to fix that. The first is key binding a key, which is the about face, which I have no clue what button it is because I don't use it. But there's the about face. It immediately changes the direction of the camera facing the other way, and so that's it. You could also play with the action camera. So with the action camera enabled, you can move in any direction and you will always move forward. So as I'm only moving using the directional keys, so if I press S, I move completely on the other side. Or you can always turn your camera with the left button and press the right button and turn around. Whatever you choose, do not press the S key. There are times where the S key is useful. For example, if you have to reposition yourself carefully, sure, go for it. But if you need to move away fast, do not use the S key. that was important to mention. Now, let's go to dodging. But before dodging, gonna talk about how we are approaching fights, which is kind of important. Now, if we're going towards the purple marker side, assuming that the purple marker is our enemies, what do you want to do? So of course, you can move forward towards them. The enemy will attack you, which is a certainty, right? So in that case, you have few options. You can, if you dodge, consider that the enemy is stopping damage toward this spot. You can dodge through all the shit. You will take no damage if you are lucky enough to nail the dodge. Otherwise, you will certainly fail and die horribly. You can look at where the damage is and stay slightly on the left, slightly on the right, and always it depends what the commander is doing, right? Because the commander is the one that defines the majority of movement. So if the commander is moving exactly on one side, remember to keep moving left and right as you move. So you're not moving straight. You keep moving a little bit. And hopefully, standing close enough to the commander, all the damage will be mitigated without the need to actually use the dodge. Now, dodge is quite an important skill. Most classes have 2 dodges. It's the yellow bar on top of your health bar. There are runes that increase, sigils that increase your energy gain. So you might have more dodges. You might play a class that have multiple dodges. Doesn't matter. Those are not candies and needs to be used with some discipline. Which is the reason why I said at the very start, remove it from your double tap, because you want to be in control of when you actually dodge. Dodge covers a 300-yard range. Now, 300 yards doesn't seem that much, but in a fight, it might seems like kilometers in game fight, especially when you are in melee range. Because if you dodge, you are no longer in melee, far away from the squad, which has lots of complicated issues with that. So when you actually dodge, if you need to close the gap with the enemy squad, and so you dodge to avoid the incoming damage, and you also are getting close to the enemy squad. You also want to dodge when to avoid damage actively. So the enemy squad stealthers are appearing from the side, drop their damage, and we need to get out. How do you get out? You dodge away. Those are the 2 ways of using dodge. Now, when you don't want to dodge, you don't want to dodge if you find yourself that you are out of position, your first instinct will be to dodge. Right? You're getting caught behind. Maybe you are here. The enemies are over there. You're totally safe, but you're slightly off the squad. You feel like, I have to dodge to get close, before we even start. Now you are 1 dodge short, and the commander requires 2 dodges to get to the squad, but suddenly you don't have enough energy to do so. So try to sync your dodges with your whole party or your squad, so that you are never left behind because you don't have enough energy to do it. Some commanders and some firebrands are running with the energy runes, which I don't sigil, which I don't think I have. No, I do have. Which it grants you 50% of your endurance. Endurance is the yellow bar, so it grants you 1 dodge. Classes that can run it, every class can run it, but in some cases it's not optimal to run. Might trick you into having more dodges that you actually have as another class. So as a commander, always remember that if you have a dodge, it doesn't mean that your squad also have a dodge available. So don't do the triple dodge thing. Like we are dodging once, dodging twice, dodging 3 times. You're gonna lose people behind because they don't have that many dodges. But then, as a commander, you could also avoid dodging altogether. So that's maybe a topic for another training session. Dodging is important, but the more important is staying close to the tag. Your first priority as member of the squad is surviving, not doing damage, not keeping people alive, not giving stability. It's surviving. How are you going to survive? You survive standing close to the tag, keep moving left and right, keep yourself on your feet, never standing still, especially when we get out of Now we just bombed the enemy. We drop all our damage there. You don't want to stay here, standing still and dropping your skills. No, that's how you get killed. You always keep moving. You keep moving. Never stand still. Because, well, fighting is fluid and you always need to get out as quickly as possible. Which brings me to the final topic. Which is, commanders look at the enemy squad and decide the movement from the squad. Now, you can do the same. You can always look at the enemy squad and try to, if you fight with the same commander for a lot, you already know how they're thinking, so you know how they're gonna react based on the situation. But in general, you don't want to be exactly on them. You always want to be moving on the side of their blob or the side of their Zerg. And that's because, as with any other PvP combat mode, the team that wins is the one that manages the cooldowns more efficiently. Now that applies to every single PvP game that exists, that has cooldowns, which means that, as a squad or as a player, you have a set amount of offensive cooldowns and a set amount of defensive cooldowns. Now, these I know about this class. So, for example, one of my cooldowns could be topping the Stabberhood. Now, that's a cooldown, as 10-second cooldown, fairly short cooldown. So, not the end of the world if you miss it. If you miss a breach, that's way worse, right? If you place, and I say if you miss, I'm not saying you as a player, but if the squad misses the mark on the position of the breach, then that cooldown is essentially wasted. Same goes for the Window of Disenchantment. Same goes for any other long cooldowns. So that I guess the important part is how you manage your offensive and defensive cooldowns. Now, for the majority of it, the commander is in charge of that. If they are calling for, if they're placing marks, maybe they are calling for a pool, maybe they are calling for wells, breaches, or big damage, spike, however the commander want to name it, they're usually in charge of it. Now, you always have to trust your commander in that he knows what he's doing, even if he or she doesn't know. And that's not important, The important part is that we are trading cooldowns effectively. So, if we're doing not drop the wells on the market, for example, over there, it doesn't mean that as a Tempest, I should use my Overload to keep you alive. We are far enough because that's 900. So, I've you can measure because that's 900. So we are slightly over the 900, but that's the correct range for wells. So, we are also in range for the enemy damage. As I said, we are never gonna stand still. Also, you never want to drop your wells at max range. You're always gonna be a little bit shorter, so you can actually close the gap. But yeah, so as a squad, you're using an offensive cooldown, and you're hoping for the enemy squad to use their defensive cooldowns. The basic defense cooldowns could be dodge. So if they all dodge on one side, you know that you have 2 dodges and they have 1, which means that they are not going to be able to charge you in any meaningful way. So if you bait them to dodge on one side, then immediately spike on the side that they dodged, they are then forced, they can dodge again. Sure, let them dodge again on this side. At that point, they have no way of avoiding you. So if you charge them, they die. Which is, basic cooldown training. Now, why this is important? It's important because as a member of the squad, you always have to recognize what the commander is trying to do, and as to avoid wasting your cooldowns unnecessarily. And that applies to stability. That applies to Condi cleanse, healing, damage. It doesn't matter whether you are first in the damage meter because you started attacking with your all your skills at random position and nobody died because of it. You might be first in damage, you might be first in cleanse, you might be first in healing done. Good job. But that's not the point. Point is, moving as a unit, which is important in melee, it's important in range, it's important in every aspect of this game mode. We always move as a unit, and as a unit, we perform actions. So quite often, you hear people getting stuck behind or caught in CCs or caught somewhere in the middle. I could be speaking to you because you might be getting stuck somewhere, and that's fine. It happens. Somebody has to be targeted by the 5 target cap of the CC. So it happens, and maybe your firebrand was a bit too slow in applying stability, or you are the firebrand that you forgot to apply stability, and that's alright. The important part though is that we stay together and we communicate as fast as possible that we are in danger. Because if I'm here and the squad is where you guys are, I'm still in time to save you. You're stuck, I can save you. It's alright. But if I notice that you are stuck while I'm here, well, you are shit out of luck. Because if I have to move back where you are, it will take me 2 dodges to actually get to you. If I do that, it means that I force all the squad to do 2 dodges, and I'm overly committing my defensive cooldowns to save you. So what's the takeaway? Takeaway is communicate, be vocal, say what your struggles are, and if you're shy and you don't want to, call out people in your squad, that's alright. Just tell them in your party. Talk to your firebrand, talk to your support. If you're constantly getting no stability, try to talk to them, and that's how you grow as a squad and as a guild in general. What else? Oh yeah. Generally, which is important for movement purposes. How the fight goal is you go towards the target. Maybe the enemy squad is there. You go towards them. You try to bait some cooldowns. You start moving left, right, or moving back. Doesn't matter what you do. The thing is, as a commander and then as a squad, you always have to be prepared that as soon as you reach the target, we start repositioning. You reposition yourself to hopefully attack again. Now, it's possible to win fights with one single fight. That usually happens when the enemy is vastly outnumbered or outnumbered or outskilled. So, you go there, you win in one shot, good job, go to the next target. But since, we're not in that situation, always be prepared that when you see a target, and we see, okay, let's attack this target, as we are approaching, we already know we're going to move, back from on this side or on the other side. We are going to follow their tail. We're going to stay on their flank. We're never going to stand still, which, brings me back to the first thing that I said in this thing. In a combat, you're never standing still because The moment you stand still, you're dead. There are no other ways of putting that. Yes, that's the main thing from today. Never standing still, keep moving. Few things about movement. I said that you can easily stay within this circle, and it's gonna be fine because you're always gonna get some healing or sustain as long as you stay within half a dodge from the center mass of the squad. It's fine. That doesn't apply to stairs, which is actually the reason why we are here in this position, because how the game is programmed. Stairs behave differently. Now, on the stairs, you do not want to wander around. You want to stay as pixel perfect as you can on the commander. And generally, you also want to be on one side of the stairs. So either you stay more towards the left side or more towards the right side. You don't really want to stay in the middle, because it's far easier for the enemy to actually strike you in the middle. But on the side, if all the damage is concentrated on this side, you can always shift on the other and keep moving. But importantly, you want to stay as close as possible to the enemy, and that's the friendlies. And it's the only situation where moving left and right is not that helpful, because the coverage is the stairs are one dodge. So if you move half a dodge, you'll be moving towards like the center, which you cannot stay in the center. So you really have no place to move. So, any questions? Because I talked for half an hour.
All good? No.
Well, of course I have to hydrate because I have to drink, but no, I mean,
you said when the enemy is pushing you.
Yeah.
Do not use moving backward key S, right?
Yes.
What to do when the enemy is pushing and you want to move back a bit to drop the damage on them? You move left, right, but the terrain doesn't allow you. What to do?
Well, let's first answer. If the terrain allows for it, the best option whenever the enemy is charging straight towards you is to simply move on one side. Moving backwards, generally, if the enemy is moving forward, is dangerous because all the damage is focused forward. Also, their momentum is forward. So if you move on one side, some of them, not all of them, but some of them will keep moving past you, allowing you to have enough time to find a weak spot and recharge back into them. You limit the amount of movement. You can still drop your damage where you are, then move on either side. It doesn't matter, but it's easier to manage. And if they do converge on you, you still have just opened yourself to some escape routes, because then you can move back where they came from, and if they use some damage, the damage will not be in the same path that you're taking. In general, I always suggest moving on sides rather than back. Now, there are times where you are kind of baiting them into pushing you so that you can drop all your traps or your breaches and then stop them on their track. Now, that works if you are even numbered or outnumbering them. If you are outnumbering, it will rarely work. But in that case, I still suggest to move to the 180, move backward, as you drop your damage, because the traps you can drop traps while moving backward. Doesn't matter. You don't have to face them. Same for breaches. You can breach and move away. But then you need to find ways to get out of their position, because if they are stronger than you, they are simply gonna charge and kill your whole squad, because you are tightly packed in the same position. And if you keep moving forward, it's easy to aim. It's harder to aim a target that moves on an angle or circles around you, which is why usually commanders what tend to do is keep circling around the target. So if I place one target, I keep moving around, because it's harder to get to land damage on the enemy if he's moving, which is partially the reason why I started with guys keep moving, never stand still. And moving backwards, it's kind of standing still, because from the enemy point of view, you're moving backwards, but you're standing in the same line. And skills that affect the line, like Revenants with the Colossus of Ruin or the Stab Road, can do shit ton of damage. The line. Yeah, dodge on sides always. And even when you're pushing forward, by the way, that's the same thing. If you're going straight towards a point, I highly suggest to move at an angle, never moving straight towards them. Even if you're gonna charge them, fine, but always charge at either side of the enemy blob, because it's less risky to do so. That's about it. It's about risk management. Did I answer the question?
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Don't be shy.
What have I missed so far? Sorry, it's a bit late coming in.
You
Cool.
miss training?
What are you doing? Just movement, where to stand, how to attack?
Yeah, kinda. There will be a training session for coordinating spikes. I mean, coordinating a spike is easier than it seems. I mean, we can definitely hold a training session for that, but the thing is, you can easily coordinate a spike if the commander applies this simple technique, spike in 3, 2, 1, and on 1, everyone do the damaging skill. That's how you coordinate damage, really. It's as easy as counting down 3, 2, 1. Now, that's why it's important for Mesmers, as I covered in the training session, to announce that they're pulling. So if they're pulling on a target, they say where, and pulling in 3, 2, 1, pulling. It needs to be second nature, because that allows other people to stack and convert the damage or convert the action to some kind of downs or cooldown usage on the enemy. I mean, and then again, of course, we can organize training session, but keep in mind that it also varies from guild to guild. So while I can say as a wall what we expect on a spike, on a wells, on breaches, etc., it's not a hard set rule for every commander. Some commanders calls for wells and they expect something, and when they call for breaches, they expect something else. It, you know, just know that usually commanders calls for spike, something that does deal a little bit of damage, and that's usually to force the enemy to use their defensive cooldowns. So you spike, you don't spike to kill, you spike to force them in a position where your main damage will definitely kill them. On the other side, you have wells and breaches, which are your main damaging cooldowns. They all revolve towards scourges because of, scourges tended to be the majority of the damaging classes, so that's kind of stick. But whenever you hear wells, it's a skill that is applied at the range, at 900 range, but it's usually a position where, you know, okay, we want to kill that spot, so we call for wells and we expect to kill. So it means that we are not opening, not necessarily with wells, because otherwise the enemy will simply dodge out of it, and we wasted one major cooldowns for barely nothing out of them. So yeah, coordinating is important. Half of it comes from the commander, so as long as the commander knows why he's calling what he's calling, then it's fairly easy to do everything else. So in that regard, we could host a commander training session if anyone is interested in that. Yeah, we could do that. Which is also fairly interesting as someone that, you know, just want to follow. Because if you know what your commander is doing, then you learn how to anticipate their movement, and you do what it's sometimes referred to as proactive gameplay, because you already know what's gonna happen, so you're just gonna do that without waiting for the commander to say wells on the marker, because you already know it's gonna be wells on that marker. Any other questions beside what has been missed so far? By the way, the training session has been recorded and is being recorded. You can catch up with it in our Discord. So, you know, it will be available. Anything else? If not, thank you very much for joining. As usual, if you have any questions, you know where to find me. You can just send me a message in Discord or in game, and I will be more than happy to answer your doubts.